This is LSAT Prep Test 154, Section 3, Passage 3. This is about cholera bacteria and a microbiologist named Rita Colwell. Pretty easy passage because the structure is straightforward and the author reveals their position early. But you don't want to let that fool you into lazy reading because the trap on this one is subtle. Of course, this is a science passage. The author is telling the story of one researcher proving the entire field wrong. The main point is that cholera bacteria can survive on their own in water, and the only reason nobody knew that is because the detection methods couldn't find them. Now, the most important paragraph is paragraph 2. It's the longest, it carries almost all the evidence, and the questions are going to pull from it heavily, so we'll spend the most time there. Paragraph 1 gives you the old view. For about 100 years, everyone believed cholera bacteria only traveled through people. Human waste got into food or water, people got sick, and that was the whole cycle. But there was a problem that nobody could solve. The bacteria kept disappearing between outbreaks. Then, cholera would show up years later in places where it was supposedly gone. And that is the mystery the whole passage exists to answer. Your job in paragraph 1 is simple. Understand the old belief and understand the hole in it. You don't want to slow down here, this is just set up. But then there's paragraph 2, which is where everything happens, so you do want to slow down here. Colwell shows up claiming she found cholera bacteria in the Chesapeake Bay, and the scientific community basically laughed at her. Why? 2 reasons. First, nobody thought the bacteria could live outside a human host. And 2, there were 0 cholera outbreaks near the Chesapeake, so on paper her claim made no sense. But here's where the paragraph turns. Colwell didn't just insist she was right, she had a theory for why nobody else had found what she found. She thought the bacteria were there all along, but that the standard method, growing cultures in a petri dish, simply could not detect them. So she used something different. She used an antibody test that makes the bacteria glow under ultraviolet light. She tested water from bayous near New Orleans, where people had gotten cholera from eating crab, and the bacteria were there. And then comes the knockout punch. In Asia, the antibody test found bacteria in 51 out of 52 water samples. The culture methods, only 7 out of the same 52. So there was a complete failure using the old tool. And that contrast is the backbone of the entire passage. It doesn't just prove Colwell right, it explains why everybody else missed it. They were wrong about the test. So you've got to walk out of paragraph 2 understanding that one thing. The argument isn't just the bacteria are in the water, it's that the bacteria were always there and we couldn't see them because we were looking the wrong way. Then paragraph 3 explains the science behind why the old method failed. The bacteria go dormant, they shrink, they stop reproducing. And if they're not reproducing, you can't grow them in a culture. Colwell calls this viable but non-culturable. That just means alive but invisible to the old tests. Now that phrase will almost certainly show up somewhere in the questions. Then the end of the passage gets speculative. Colwell notices that cholera outbreaks in South Asia line up with seasonal changes in ocean temperature. If the bacteria are sitting in the water the whole time, maybe temperature or salinity changes are what wake them up. But notice how the author pulls back here. You get if Colwell believes and it is possible. They're hedging. The author is with Colwell on the main claim, but this last piece is presented as an open question, not a conclusion, so you don't want to treat it as proven. The questions might offer you an answer choice that overstates this. Now, you want to read paragraph 3 at a moderate pace. The dormancy explanation matters. The temperature stuff at the end is supporting detail. Now, the key move here is the gap between what's actually in the water and what the old detection method could find. That's what every hard question on this passage will circle back to. Now, the author fully supports Colwell. After the initial skepticism from other scientists, there is not a single word of pushback. Every paragraph after the opening stacks evidence in her favor. The big trap is confusing the skepticism in paragraph 2 with the author's own position. The author is describing what the other scientists believed, then spending the rest of the passage demolishing it. So if you read that skepticism as the author's view, you're going to blow any question about the author's attitude or the passage's main point. Now, before you hit the questions, you want to make sure you know 3 things. First, why couldn't traditional methods detect the bacteria? Second, what does viable but non-culturable actually mean? And third, what is the 51 out of 52 versus 7 out of 52 comparison doing in the argument? Not what it says, but why it's there.